topic of discussion for today's session is the anatomy of the brachial plexus as well as its clinical importance. So here, the brachial plexus is the somatic nerve plexus formed by the intercommunications among anterior rami of the four cervical nerves as well as the first thoracic nerve. So here, brachial plexus is responsible for the motor innervation as well as sensory innervation to the upper limb. So here, what is the origin of the brachial plexus? It originates in the neck, passes infralaterally over the first rib, and then enters the axilla. So here, if you see the proximal as well as distal parts of the brachial plexus, posterior to the subclavian artery as well as axillary artery. So, we will discuss the formation of the brachial plexus under following headings: roots, trunks, divisions, cords, as well as branches. So let us discuss about the roots of the brachial plexus. The roots of the brachial plexus are derived from the anterior rami of C5, C6, C7, C8 and T1. Origin of the brachial plexus may shift one segment upwards or downwards, resulting in prefixed or a postfixed plexus respectively. So here it receives gray rami communicants from the sympathetic trunk, which carry the postganglionic sympathetic fibers to the peripheral region, and here it passes between the anterior as well as the middle scalene muscles to enter the posterior triangle of the neck. So here the roots of the brachial plexus join to form trunks. Now let us talk about the trunks of the brachial plexus. Superior trunk or upper trunk of the brachial plexus is formed by the union of C5 and C6. And the middle trunk is formed by the continuation of the C7, and the inferior or the lower trunk is formed by the union of C8 and T1. So here these trunks start from the roots of the brachial plexus and enter the axilla by passing laterally over the first rib. Now, after the trunks, let us talk about the divisions of brachial plexus. So here, the three trunks of the brachial plexus give off anterior as well as posterior divisions. Each of these divisions join to form cords. So let us talk about the anterior division. Anterior divisions give rise to the peripheral nerves of the upper limb, which is mainly associated with the anterior compartment, which means all the nerves which are joined or formed from the anterior divisions gives innervation to all the muscles of the anterior or the flexor compartment of the upper limb. And when we talk about the posterior divisions, the posterior divisions give rise to peripheral nerves which are mainly associated with the posterior compartment of the upper limb, which is also called as the extensor compartment. Now at last we will talk about the cords of the brachial plexus. Here we have totally three cords: lateral cord, posterior cord, as well as the medial cord. So if we talk about the lateral cord of the brachial plexus, it is mainly formed by the union of anterior divisions of superior as well as the middle trunk, and it has mainly contribution from the nerve roots C5, C6 and C7. Here it lies lateral to the second part of the axillary artery. And next is the posterior cord. The posterior cord of the brachial plexus is mainly formed by the union of all the three posterior divisions, so it has contributions from C5 to T1. the nerves which are associated with the posterior compartment of the upper limb mainly originate from the posterior cord, and it lies posterior to the second part of the axillary artery. And the third one is the medial cord of the brachial plexus. The medial cord continues with the anterior divisions of the inferior trunk, so it has the contributions mainly from C8 and T1. So the nerves which are mainly associated with the anterior compartment are derived from the medial and the lateral cord. So here the medial cord lies medial to the second part of the axillary artery. So if you see the second part of the axillary artery, laterally is the lateral cord, medially is the medial cord, and posteriorly is the posterior cord of the brachial plexus. And next, what are the branches which are given off by these plexus? First, branches from the roots. So here they give rise to dorsal scapular nerve and the long thoracic nerve. Along with these, C5 also gives a contribution to the phrenic nerve. So first one is the dorsal scapular nerve, which is also called as nerve to rhomboides. So nerve to rhomboides or the dorsal scapular nerve originates from C5 root of the brachial plexus, where it reaches the medial border of the scapula by piercing middle scalene muscles of the neck, where it mainly gives innervation to the rhomboid major and rhomboid minor muscles, which are mainly responsible for retraction of the shoulder. And next is the long thoracic nerve, which is also called as nerve to serratus anterior. The long thoracic nerve arises from the anterior rami of C5, C6 as well as C7, right? It supplies serratus anterior muscle by passing through the axillary inlet, down the medial wall of the axilla, and mainly responsible for overhead abduction of the arm. So these are the branches which are given off by the roots. Next is branches of trunks. Branches of the trunk mainly arise from the upper trunk of the brachial plexus, because the middle trunk and lower trunk does not give any branches. So here the branches which are arising from the superior or upper trunk of the brachial plexus are the suprascapular nerve and the nerve to subclavius. So the suprascapular nerve originates from the upper trunk, so obviously it has a root value of C5 and C6, where it enters the posterior scapular region by passing through the posterior triangle of the neck and through the suprascapular foramen, where it gives innervation to the supraspinatus and infraspinatus muscles. Next is nerve to the subclavius. So here nerve to the subclavius also arises from the upper trunk of the brachial plexus, so obviously it also has the root value of C5 and C6. It passes antero-inferiorly through the subclavian artery and vein, and mainly it gives innervation to the subclavian muscles. Now these are the branches which are arising from the upper trunk of the brachial plexus, and the next is the branches arising from the cords. First is the branches which arise from the lateral cord of the brachial plexus. So remember that there are totally 3 nerves arises from the lateral cord, which can be remembered with the mnemonic as LML. L for the lateral pectoral, M for the musculocutaneous, and L for the lateral root of the median nerve. Right? These are the branches which are arising from the lateral cord of the brachial plexus. And if we discuss about one by one, first one is the lateral pectoral nerve. The lateral pectoral nerve, as I already told you, that it arises from the lateral cord of the brachial plexus, and it has a root value of C5, C6 and C7. It passes anteriorly along the thoracoacromial artery and mainly penetrates the clavipectoral fascia, where it gives innervation to the pectoralis major as well as minor muscles. And the next one is the musculocutaneous nerve. Musculocutaneous nerve is the largest terminal branch of the lateral cord of the brachial plexus with a root value of C5, C6 and C7, and it mainly terminates as the lateral cutaneous nerve of the forearm. So it gives mainly innervation to the coracobrachialis, biceps brachii, to the both long as well as short head, as well as to the brachialis muscle. So that is the reason it is also called as the BBC nerve, because it is giving innervation to the biceps brachialis and coracobrachialis muscles. Next one is the lateral root of the median nerve. It joins a branch from the medial cord to form a median nerve. So it forms a major nerve for the muscles of the front of the forearm and muscles of the thenar eminence, because it is taking part in the formation of the median nerve. Next is, what are the branches which are arising from the medial cord of the brachial plexus? So here the medial cord gives rise to totally 5 branches. So medial pectoral nerve, medial cutaneous nerve of the arm, medial cutaneous nerve of the forearm, and medial root of the median nerve. So you can remember with the mnemonic M4U for this. So all the 5 branches which are arising from the medial cord of the brachial plexus. So the first one is the medial pectoral nerve with a root value of C8 and T1. It communicates with a branch from the lateral pectoral nerve of the lateral cord. It passes between the axillary artery and the axillary vein, and mainly it gives innervation to the pectoralis major muscle and also to the pectoralis minor. The next one is the medial cutaneous nerve of the arm with the root value of C8 and T1. It passes through the axilla to enter the arm. Mainly it communicates with the intercostobrachial nerve of T2 and supplies the floor of the axilla as well as upper part of the medial side of the arm. Next is the medial cutaneous nerve of the forearm with a root value C8 and T1. So it arises distal to the medial cutaneous nerve of the arm. It carries sensory impulses from medial side of the forearm. And next is the ulnar nerve with a root value of C8 and T1. It receives a communicating branch from the lateral cord of the median nerve, sometimes often from 7. That is the reason sometimes we will also mention the root value of the ulnar nerve is C7, C8 and T1. Ulnar nerve mainly supplies flexor carpi ulnaris and all the intrinsic muscles of the palm, and also to the medial half of flexor digitorum profundus. So next is the medial root of the median nerve, which is the last branch of the medial cord of the brachial plexus with the root value of C8 and T1. It joins with a similar root from the lateral cord of the brachial plexus to form the median nerve after joining, right? Now let us discuss about what are the branches which are arising from the posterior cord of the brachial plexus. Like medial cord, the posterior cord also gives off totally 5 branches, right? One is upper subscapular nerve, thoracodorsal nerve, lower subscapular nerve, axillary nerve and the radial nerve. All these are the 5 branches which arise from the posterior cord of the brachial plexus, and you can remember with the mnemonic ultra. So here the first one is the upper subscapular nerve. It mainly supplies the subscapularis muscle. And the thoracodorsal nerve is also called as the nerve to the latissimus dorsi. It mainly innervates the latissimus dorsi muscle. And the next one is lower subscapular nerve. It mainly supplies subscapular as well as teres major muscles. And next one is the axillary nerve. Axillary nerve arises from the posterior cord and it exits axilla through the quadrangular space and passes posteriorly around the surgical neck of the humerus, where it gives innervation to the deltoid as well as teres minor muscle. And the next one is the radial nerve. Radial nerve is the largest branch of the posterior cord of the brachial plexus. It exits the axilla through the triangular space and supplies all the muscles of the posterior compartment of the arm and forearm, and also the skin on the posterior surface of the arm and forearm, and the lower lateral and the dorsolateral surface of the arm and the triceps brachii muscle, right? So these are all the branches which arises from the posterior cord of the brachial plexus. Now let us talk about the blood supply of the brachial plexus. The brachial plexus also needs blood supply for its survival. So the blood supply is derived from the following arteries: the vertebral artery, branches of the thyrocervical trunk, suprascapular artery, and the transverse cervical artery. These four arteries give arterial supply to the brachial plexus. Clinical anatomy of the brachial plexus. The most common injury to the brachial plexus occur with a severe traction with the arm in abduction in a motorcycle accident. So partly paralysis occurs in shoulder dislocation, and the direct injury also a major cause for the brachial plexus injury, and rarely gunshot or stab wounds may cause the damage to the brachial plexus. And the first, let us talk about what is the Erb's point. It is the site at the upper trunk of the brachial plexus and approximately located 2 to 3 centimeters superior to the clavicle, where the 6 nerves meet at this point. And injury at this site causes Erb's paralysis. And what is Erb's paralysis? Paralysis of the arm due to injury to the upper trunk of the brachial plexus is called as Erb's palsy, and the nerve roots which are involved are C5 and C6. What are the causes of Erb's palsy? It is mainly due to excessive increase in the angle between the neck as well as the shoulder. Mainly we will see this type of injury during birth, as well as the direct fall on the shoulder, and also during anesthesia. The muscles which are paralyzed are biceps brachii, deltoid, brachialis, brachioradialis, partial involvement of the supraspinatus, infraspinatus, and supinator muscles. And the deformity in Erb's paralysis leads to waiter's tip hand. It is also called as a policeman tip hand or porter's tip hand. So the typical deformity, if you see this image, arm hang by side and rotate medially, and the forearm is pronated and extended, and there will be a flexion of the wrist as well as fingers. So because of this, what happens is the disability is mainly seen at the abduction, and lateral rotation at the shoulder is lost. The flexion and supination of the forearm is lost, and also there will be absence of biceps jerk. You can also see absence of the supinator jerk, and the sensations are lost over the lower part of the deltoid. So this is what you need to know about Erb's paralysis. Klumpke's paralysis. The Klumpke's paralysis is mainly due to an injury to the lower trunk of the brachial plexus. So it has a low incidence as well as poor prognosis than Erb's paralysis, and the nerve roots mainly involved over here, mainly T1 as well as partially C8. And what are the causes of Klumpke's palsy? It is more commonly seen in the obstetric injury and also in cervical rib. And what are the muscles which are paralyzed during this condition? So the muscles paralyzed are all the small muscles of the hand, because ulnar nerve gives innervation to the intrinsic muscles of the hand, and the sensory loss is mainly seen on the medial side of the arm. And what is the deformity? It causes claw hand, and the characteristic features of the claw hand, as you can see over here, there will be an hyperextension of the metacarpophalangeal joint due to the loss of hand intrinsics, and the wrist in extreme extension because of unopposed wrist extensors, and there will be a flexion of the interphalangeal joints mainly due to loss of hand intrinsics. So mainly in Klumpke's palsy, one may see Horner syndrome. That is, the Klumpke's palsy is mainly associated with the Horner syndrome if the injury is proximal to the T1. So what are the clinical findings in the Klumpke's palsy? There will be a characteristic findings of ptosis, meiosis, anhydrosis, anophthalmos, and also loss of ciliospinal reflex. So all these are the characteristic features of Klumpke's palsy. And next, what are the vasomotor changes which are mainly seen in this? So here, skin areas with sensory loss is warm and dry. This is mainly due to arteriolar dilation, and also the loss of sweating is mainly because of loss of sympathetic supply. And what are the tropic changes which are seen in the Klumpke's palsy? Dry and scaly skin, atrophy of the finger pulps, and also brittle nails. So this is what you need to know about Klumpke's palsy. The next is injury of long thoracic nerve, which is also called as the nerve to serratus anterior. So here, the long thoracic nerve injury is mainly caused due to the crush injury between the clavicle and the first rib while carrying heavy objects on the shoulders. So, other causes may include chest tube insertion, shoulder injury, and also during surgeries like mastectomy. So, what is a deformity we can see in the long thoracic nerve injury? Injury to the nerve to the serratus anterior mainly leads to the paralysis of the muscle, which includes inability to raise the hand above 90 degrees, that is, overhead abduction of the arm is lost beyond 90 degrees, right? And also a characteristic winging of scapula one can see, that is excessive prominence of the medial border of the scapula when the patient presses against the wall, which gives rise to the appearance of a wing. That's why we will call it as the winging of scapula.